Welcome to the ConnectALL product demonstration webinar. This is Soumya Menon and I head marketing communications for ConnectALL. I'm pleased to introduce you to Andrew Fuqua, our VP of Products, and Jonathan McGowan, our Senior Solutions Architect. ConnectALL's Tricentis Tosca integration lets testers collaborate with development, QA, and other teams to improve product quality. So Andrew and Jonathan will show you how ConnectALL can automatically flow defects between Jira, Tosca, and all other tools used to plan, build, and deliver software to eliminate manual tasks such as duplicate entry, status meetings, and email. So before we get started with the webinar, just a little housekeeping. Today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session, so we will send you the link. We'd love to hear from you during the presentation. So if you have any questions, please type them out in the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will bring them up after the presentation. And lastly, we'd encourage you to share today's webinar with your team members and communities. Without further ado, I'm handing it over to Andrew.
It's just waiting for the screen sharing thing to pop up, and I'll share my screen, and we'll dig right into this. Soumya, is that screen sharing?
I'm just, yeah, sorry about that.
All right, it's not a problem at all. So while we wait for that, every year SD Times comes out with this list of the top apps across several different categories, and both Tricentis and ConnectALL are in the best of show list. Of course, in their respective categories is Tricentis in testing, of course, and ConnectALL in value stream management. And so we're going to have Jonathan demonstrate Tosca and Jira, the 3 easy steps to getting a synchronization going between these in a few minutes. But I wanted to say a little bit about Tosca and ConnectALL and integration before we get into the demo. I'll try not to take too much time, but there's the 2019 SD Times Best in Show banner. It's a good resource for you to use. Another thing that's interesting to me about Tricentis Tosca is that Gartner, IDC, and Forrester place Tosca in their leadership quadrants, the only tool in the leadership quadrant in all 3 research companies. And Tosca's achieved this triple crown, so to speak, 4 years running. I think that's a really big deal. It's just evidence of the strength of Tosca, and I'm glad they got that recognition. It's well deserved. But Tosca, Tricentis also has many other things. Tosca is not the only thing they've got. They've got Q-test for like agile test management and BDD and shift left strategies, and they've got Flood for automated load performance testing and analytics and other stuff. But it's not just the products from Tricentis that I think are great, but it's their online training and their recorded webinars, or they call them MOOCs. I think they're outstanding. I found them very valuable when I was learning how to use Tosca and Q-test. I like that about a company, one that makes it easy to do sophisticated things, but not by dumbing it down, but by investing in usability and really good training that's easy to get access to. Another thing that's good about Tosca is they help you get the test automation job done with less scripting, but at the same time without being brittle with tests tied too tightly to the UI rendering. But I try to do that at ConnectALL, those types of things at ConnectALL as well. I want to make it easy to get to the docs. We're investing a lot in improving the documentation, and we're making it as easy as we can to configure a very sophisticated integration without programming, so or scripting. So and we also help you design and implement your integration when you want to deploy ConnectALL into your environment. And that's a service you can't get from just anybody. So there's other tools out there that that can do integrations, but they don't have all of the advanced features that ConnectALL does. We'll just briefly touch on some of those things, but it'll go, our capabilities go much further than what we'll be able to show you today. But this is important because, of course, test tools aren't the only class of tools in your development ecosystem. You know, there's PPM and requirements management and the agile lifecycle tools and SCM and CI/CD and config management and IT ops and all these other things. And there's your own homegrown apps or bespoke apps. There's and then the best of breed tools you have. You may even have worst of breed tools, those things that you wish you could get rid of, but it's just but you can't. It's part of your environment and you're stuck with it for a while. But in any event, whichever type of tool and all of these types of tools you have in your environment, it's their value can be diminished if you can't feed the feedback or the details from one tool into other aspects of your value stream. So you need to get the issues into the hands of those who can resolve the issues, along with all the necessary context, the comments, the status, attachments, and traceability back to the source and the author or creator information as well. And so that's what ConnectALL does. It does that, and it keeps all of these issues or entities between these systems in sync automatically when things change. So we can integrate everything. We connect all things. If it's got a REST API or a database, we can connect it with just configuration, no coding. Now, of course, you know, there's plugins and all sorts of integration solutions, and most of the tools on here have a built-in integration with some other tools. But usually what you end up with is that the integrations are limited. And so you end up with doing some integration with this tool and some other integration with that tool, and then a third integration with some other thing. And it ends up being kind of difficult. So I've found that when you have many different point-to-point integration solutions in your dev ecosystem, it's silently expensive. Each one's configured differently, they upgrade differently, they're administered differently, and it ends up making your value stream harder to understand or support. Or when there's something you don't understand where some value came from or the behavior of the syncing, it's harder to debug and make improvements. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the times the cheaper integrations don't have all of the features of a robust integration platform like ConnectALL. So it's a mismatch and and that's often more costly than anyone realizes or can measure. So it's much easier to do that across the value stream with the ConnectALL platform. And so with ConnectALL and Tosca, you've got a full-fledged integration with all of these tools. And with our Tosca support, we're doing everything. We're requirements and defects and test cases and execution entries and test run results, you know, the actual log in the execution list. And we'll do attachments and relationships and hierarchy and multiple types of record linking. Again, you can integrate Tosca with these specific tools that we've gotten a specific integration for. But in addition to that, with our custom application adapter, you can also integrate Tosca with your own homegrown or bespoke applications. We can help you do that. So we're going to show you just a simple Tosca and Jira illustration, but again, the power of this platform goes much further beyond what we'll be able to show. So why don't we see this in action? Jonathan, can you show us the 3 steps to integration?
Hey, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, my name is Jonathan McGowan, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect on the ConnectALL team. Can you see my screen that has Jira pulled up, Andrew?
We haven't switched over to your screen yet, I don't think.
Okay, it may be a little bit of lag there. There we go. But yeah, as one that's coming up, I'll just introduce myself. Again, I'm Jonathan McGowan, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect on the ConnectALL team. And basically what I do is I provide product demonstrations and then also help out with evaluations and deployments of ConnectALL as well. So as customers are interested in getting ConnectALL up and running in their environments, someone like me can sit down with them and help them sort through all the pieces that Andrew was just kind of talking about. And you can kind of leverage our experience with all these different tools and kind of expedite your process there. Is my screen showing now?
Yeah, it was. It was probably my fault. It was probably up 3 minutes ago.
Oh, all right, very good. All right, so the illustration that we'll show today is I've integrated Jira with Tosca, and I've got a story here that I'm going to create in Jira, and then we'll take a look and see that synchronize over to Tosca. Then we can go to Tosca and make some changes over there, and we'll see those synchronize back to Jira. So let's say that we've got a brand new story over here. We're going to say something like, the Tosca widget should provide value, or something like that. It's probably not the best requirement ever written, but so you say the widget should be blue. Okay, and that's really all I need to go ahead and get this in the queue. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And I'm going to pull that up right here, and we can see that we've got that brand new issue right there. So what's happening now is, I don't have to do anything else in Jira. What's going to happen now is ConnectALL is going to poll both Jira and Tosca. It's doing that on a set interval that I've defined, and the next time it polls Jira, it's going to say, "Hey, Jira, show me everything that has been updated. Show me all the user stories that have been updated here recently." And so Jira will return a list of those user stories that have been updated. Since that's a brand new user story, ConnectALL is going to say, "Oh, I've never seen that one before. I need to go create that over in Tosca." And so this is all done without any sort of plugins or anything like that, or any sort of interaction from the Jira user or the Tosca user. As far as those users are concerned, they can just they'll just see that new story appear, or they'll see that new requirement appear rather over in Tosca. And so let's go ahead and do that then. We can go ahead and go over to Tosca. I've got my server pulled up over here. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and load up the Tosca commander. And that'll give us the opportunity to go in and look at our requirements that we have there. So while we wait for that to load, what I'm going to do here is I'll log into Tosca, and then I'll pull up my repository that's there. And then I'll assign some test cases to that. I've already got a couple of tests that have failed. And my idea, or my intention here, is that I will I'll have those test cases will update my execution status on that requirement, and then we'll see that execution status will synchronize back over to Jira. Okay, so let's go ahead then and let's go into our repository. I'll just click on widgets there. And it sometimes does take a moment for this to load, but that'll be fine. What we can do there while we wait for that to load is I'll come over here into ConnectALL, and we can talk about our integration. We'll go ahead and start setting the stage for that. So what'll happen here is, this is all on one page. It's very, very neat and clean to come in here and look at everything that's set up for this integration. You can see here is a nice summary page for my application link that says Jira and Tosca stories. You can see at the very top where I've got my connection information. Of course, we need to be able to connect to communicate to both tools. And all we do is we just need a simple username and password to connect to both of those tools. And as long as they've got the right permissions, as long as they have access to read and write in that project or that repository, then we're good to go. So it's very lightweight. Again, no plugins are required there. Then we can also see that I've got some additional metadata down here. And really, that's just a way of saying that this is my way of setting my project scope. So you can see here on the left where I've chosen to say that my stories in Jonathan's project should synchronize with my requirements in my widgets repo. So that's the kind of global level we can that shows that ConnectALL can scope at that project and repo level, and we can also create a mapping then between these work items. We can also further refine that mapping if we so choose. You can see here that I've added something called a poll query. And basically that poll query allows me to filter specific issues. So let's say I didn't want to synchronize all of my stories in my project. You can see in this case, I only want to synchronize the stories that say Tosca. A more realistic use case would probably be something like filtering on the status. As you work on your user stories, they kind of stay in a to-do state for a while, and you're not necessarily ready to send those over to your QA team in Tosca until they've been really formed up. And so what we can do is we can put in a filter that basically says status is not equal to do. And that can be written in JQL and then pasted right here into ConnectALL. So then that would exclude all of my stories that are still in my kind of drafting state, whatever that state happens to be for you in your process. And then once it's finally approved, then we can move it into the in progress state, and then ConnectALL would pick it up and move it over to Tosca. We can also see right above that where we can also control the create and update directions. The red X over here isn't bad. That just means that I'm not creating stories over here in Jira. I can do that if I so choose, but in this use case, I want Jira to be the one that creates these requirements. So it will sync over its stories to requirements, but in this specific use case, it will not create the other way around. Then down here at the bottom, under the field mapping, you can see where I've got several fields that are mapped. And this is kind of what you'll see here in just a moment whenever we get back to Tosca Commander. You'll see that I brought over the summary from Jira and then the description. And then you'll see the status text come back from Tosca and go over into Jira. So let's come back over here to Tosca then. Yeah, we can see that it's ready to go there. And I'm going to go ahead and log in over here. And then once that pulls up, we should see our brand new requirement over here. So underneath this set, we can see, yep, here's my new requirement. The Tosca widget should provide value. We can see it also says that the widget should be blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of test cases here too. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my requirement. And I've already got an execution plan up here just to kind of save us some time. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to refresh this and go ahead and repopulate those values. And you can see that my widget, this brand new requirement that I added in, now has some execution values along with it too. So what that's going to do now is now that has been updated, that actually updates our timestamp over here in Tosca. And then the next time ConnectALL polls, just like it did for Jira, if you recall, what we did in Jira is we said, hey, Jira, show me everything that's been updated. It's going to do the same thing for Tosca now. The next time it polls Tosca, it's going to say, Tosca, show me everything that's been updated within this specific time period. And then at that point, Tosca will return that requirement because it's got some updated statuses. And then we'll actually see that synchronize back over to Jira. All right. So let's go ahead then and pull up Jira again in just a second. Let's come back over here. Let's go back into Jira. I'll go ahead and refresh that. Let's give it just a moment. It doesn't look like it has come over quite yet, but we should see that here in just a moment. All right. So again, what I've got it set to about every 5 minutes, and we're probably pretty close to that 5-minute mark. And what it should likely do then is it'll pick that up. Sometimes I get to talking and it takes a couple minutes, and but it's not quite at that full 5-minute mark yet. So we'll give it just a moment here, and then we should see that come back over. All right, so with that, let's go ahead then and see if it's there again. Oh, nothing quite yet. Let's see if we've got it now. There we go. Now we've got it right there. Okay, so we can see that my external status, if you can see my screen here, we can see that my external status has synchronized over. So we've got an update back over here from Tosca that basically says, 50% of my tests passed, 50% of them failed. 0% have not been executed, meaning they've all been executed and they've all been linked as well. So here we can see just this basic use case where I've created a story in Tosca, I've created a story in Jira that's replicated a requirement over in Tosca, and then I added a few test cases over there, and then that test execution status then flowed back over here to Jira. So now I've got some good insight in Jira as to what is actually happening over there in Tosca. I don't have to log into both tools to go check that out. I can actually see what's going on here. Right. So with that, that concludes kind of the technical demonstration here. With that, let's go over to some questions then. We'll take questions from the audience.
Hey, Jonathan, I got a couple here, and I've been made the presenter again, so let me show that. So yes, questions. So one of the questions that we have is, how can I tell where a defect originated? If I'm looking at, let's say I'm in Jira. I mean, how can I tell that it came over from Tosca?
Yes, actually, and so that's something that I didn't show today, but we can support the ID fields, and we can definitely have those IDs synchronized back and forth between each system. That's obviously not required for the integration to work because you didn't see the IDs synchronizing today. But that is, if we wanted to say map the Jira key over to something in Tosca, we could do that. Or if we wanted to map a Tosca ID back over to Jira, we could do that as well. That gives you kind of some nice traceability there between the two systems, and you kind of know where the source of this was, or at least know where it's tied to.
Okay, so there's any number of ways, an ID, or you could use a special field or a special label or things like that. I guess it would work the other way if some things can be created directly in Tosca, some things are synced over from Jira, so you could do the same kind of a thing with putting a value in the field that would indicate to people where it came from.
That's right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. The next question is, and you may need to share your screen again for this one. It's what's the history? I guess that's the history tab in Jira. What's the history tab in Jira look like after a sync?
So that actually.
Here's an answer from YouTube.
Well, I wasn't asking my Google phone that.
So basically, the way that this works is, if you recall back on my summary screen where I had the username and password there for that for access, basically, that username and password that I use in that connection details is the user that is going to be processing all of the synchronizations. So basically, instead of you logging into Jira, let's say instead of Andrew having to log into Jira and look for changes and make those changes, the user called ConnectALL is going to log into Jira and make those changes. And so all your history updates will be shown as that service account, but it will still behave the same way as if a user had gone in there and done that. You'll actually see there within Jira, you'll see ConnectALL made this change, basically.
Is that something that you could show? Can we put your share your screen again and show what that looks like?
We could.
Am I asking too much?
Here, I'll go ahead and bring it up right now. There you go. Can you see my Jira again?
I can, yes.
Okay. So here you can see, right now I'm using an administrator account. It does not have to be an administrator. It can be any user that has the right permissions. But you can see here where I created that original issue. And then you can also see where that administrator account made that change over here in Jira as well. It would just be called ConnectALL or whatever user account you have set up to make those changes.
Great. Okay, cool. All right, so that's very good. That's the end of our questions at the moment. And let me share my screen again, and we will show you what's coming up next. Just waiting for the screen sharing to switch back over. There you go. Hey, Soumya, can you tell us about our next webinar?
Sure, yeah. So we have a webinar every month, and the next one we're going to talk about the custom applications adapter, which lets you connect all the tools in your software delivery value stream. So do visit our website and register for that whenever that is up. And do share that with your teams as well. So thank you so much, Andrew and Jonathan. We have a lot of questions here. So we will try and get back to you with specific answers, but thank you so much for joining us. And I hope this gave you a picture of ConnectALL's powerful integration capabilities. You could also check some of our customer reviews on our profile on G2, which is a leading review site used by B2B buyers. So do visit that as well. And thank you so much.